Ballot initiatives, we've been covering these. We're going through the alphabet, and we have now reached the end of the I's and the beginning of the K's. We're going to go ahead and bring it in with Illinois. Let's see how ballot initiatives work in Illinois and what ballot measures they've had this time around. Illinois. Citizens of Illinois may only initiate constitutional amendments through the process of direct initiative, meaning successful petition drives bypass Illinois legislature and go directly on the ballot for voters to vote on for ratification to their constitution. Easier process than my state, Massachusetts. Citizens may not initiate state statutes or veto referendums. The Illinois General Assembly may place legislatively referred constitutional amendments on the ballot with a 3/5 majority vote of each chamber for voters to ratify. So this piece here is important. The number required. In Illinois, the signature requirement for initiated constitutional amendments is 8% of the total votes cast for governor in the preceding gubernatorial election. So Roger Meadows put that for me there in red. So that's important. And we're going to go ahead and get into the initiative for Illinois. So Illinois, I believe, only had one. This one's interesting. Speaking of workers, Illinois Amendment 1. The right to collective bargaining measure. A yes vote supported amending the Illinois Constitution to state that employees have a fundamental right to organize and bargain collectively through representatives of their own choosing for the purpose of negotiating wages, hours, and working conditions, and to protect their economic welfare and safety at work. And 2, prohibit any law that interferes with or negates or diminishes the right of employees to organize and bargain collectively. As you can imagine, this one passed. It passed by 58.72%. Now, I'm surprised it didn't have a higher percentage than that, but it did pass. Who supported it? Governor Pritzker, Senator Ram Villalobos, State Representative Marcus Evans, and State Representative Lance Yednock. If any of you in the chat live in Illinois, let me know. Okay. There were some unions that supported this as well. The Associated Firefighters of Illinois, Chicago Laborers District Council, Chicago Teachers Union, Illinois AFL-CIO, Illinois Federation of Teachers, Illinois Pipe Trades Association, and SEIU Healthcare Illinois and Indiana. Interesting. They brought Indiana in there too as well. And I wanted to show you who opposed it. Who opposed it? State Representative Blaine Wilher. Political parties that opposed it: Republican Party of Illinois. Here are some of the organizations that opposed it: Americans for Tax Reform, Illinois Association of School Boards, Illinois Chamber of Commerce, Illinois Manufacturers Association, Illinois Policy Institute, and National Federation of Independent Business. Individuals: this dude here, Richard Illine, CEO of Uline Corporation. So that one did pass. And Roger Meadows put something here that I thought was interesting. It says in Illinois, CBIs must pass by 60% of those voting on the initiative, yet this passed by less than 60%. The other part says it can also pass by a majority of those who cast a ballot for any office in that election. So I figure this is why it passed without needing the 60%, but I still don't know what that means. I called up almost every Illinois government office that they referred me to, and they kept referring me to another office, one after another after another. If there is anyone from Illinois who knows what this means, please tell me so I can update my notes. So that's a note from Roger there. And I believe we did have some Illinois people, Jay Tolbert, Illinois in the House, and Lawrence Johnson, Illinois in the House. Recliner Mike says Illinois is greatly propagandized. We voted down tax reform amendment. Interesting. Too bad we don't have Kit here to talk about this one as well. So that is Illinois. Now let's check out Kentucky and Kansas. Now, these are interesting. We're going to start off with Kansas. Kansas is not a citizen ballot initiative state. This one's important. Laws are passed the traditional way via the legislature, and amendments are referred to voters by what the legislature, via a legislative referred constitutional amendment, put before the voters to ratify. So just keep that in mind. It's different in Kansas. This is the biggest one. Kansas, no state constitutional right to abortion and legislative power to regulate abortion amendment. So I want to explain for a second. This provision is put in place to amend the Constitution that the state already has. Let's see what happened here. A yes vote supported amending the Kansas Constitution to state that nothing in the state constitution creates a right to abortion or requires government funding for abortion, and state that the legislature has the authority to pass laws regarding abortion. This initiative failed by 58.97%. Now, when I say failed, you have to think the opposite with this one. Is tricky. It failed, but it's a good thing it failed. Let me explain why. These can be tricky if you don't read into them. What you have to pay attention to here is that a yes vote supported amending the Kansas Constitution to state that nothing in the state constitution creates a right to abortion or requires government funding for abortion. So a yes vote for this measure actually would be bad if you are pro-choice. Just wanted to explain that because I don't want people to get confused and they'll be like, oh, it failed and da 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 da. So that's a good thing that that one failed. Who supported it? Senator Roger Marshall, Senator Molly Baumgardner, Senator Renee Erickson, Senator Ty Masterson, and Senator Kelly Warren. Some former officials are listed there as well. To show you who supported it, you can understand how this went. Lieutenant Governor of Kansas, Jeff Collier, Governor of Arkansas, Mike Huckabee. So we know Mike Huckabee is not for a woman's right to choose. So again, it's a good thing that this initiative failed. Just want to reiterate that. And U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, of course, also supported this initiative here. Organizations that were supported it as well. Democrats for Life of America. What the hell is that? What is that? This whole Democrat thing, Democrats trying to be pro-life is crazy to me. Family Policy Alliance in Kansas, Kansians for Life, and Kansas Catholic Conference. Individuals, Joseph Newman, Kansas City Archbishop. Okay, and who opposed it? As you can imagine, most of the Democrats. Elizabeth Warren, Pelosi's here, Sharice Davis, Laura Kelly, Dinah Sykes, Christina Hasswood, Lindsey Vaughn, Quentin Lucas, officials Joe Koistein and Nancy Lusk, organizations, America Civil Liberties Union of Kansas, Kansas Abortion Fund, Mainstream Coalition, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, Planned Parenthood is one as well. This is something, again, that Roger pointed out, very slick to put it to the ballot in August. This is an admission of their unpop policy. Yeah, you have to understand what was going on at that time. This was right before the midterms as well. So just keep that in mind. And then Another thing here that I think is important, Value Them Both PAC was registered in support of the amendment. The committee reported over 8 million in contributions. Kansans for Constitutional Freedom was registered in opposition to the amendment. The committee reported over 11.4 million in contributions. Just imagine what that money could have done for people in this country. All these millions and millions of dollars that we just put towards like political tasks. This is really interesting to me. The next initiative for Kansas is Kansas Constitutional Amendment 1, Legislative Veto or Suspension of Executive Agency Regulations Amendment. A yes vote supported this constitutional amendment to allow the state legislature to pass laws by a simple majority vote to revoke or suspend rules and regulations adopted by executive agencies or officers. This was defeated. It failed by 50.45%. And let me go on here. Who supported it? Attorney General Derek Schmidt. Some of the unions that supported it: Kansas Agribusiness Retailers Association, Kansas Bankers Association, the Cooperative Council, Grain and Feed Association, Livestock Association, and Renew Kansas Biofuels Association. Organizations: Americans for Prosperity, Kansas Chamber United for Business. They're on here twice for some reason. And who opposed it? Governor Laura Kelly and State Senator Dinah Sykes. Organizations who opposed it: Kansas Sierra Club. So, yeah. Another note here from Roger Meadows: I'm surprised unions were in support of this amendment, seeing that there is also a such thing as workplace regulation. Yeah. Again, I think that goes back to the propaganda, to be honest. Like, how was this mentioned to people? You know? Okay. And this amendment for Kansas, this one passed. Kansas Constitutional Amendment 2, County Sheriff Election and Recall Amendment. Whoa. A yes vote supported amending the state constitution to require the election of county sheriffs in counties that had not been abolished. I'm sorry, this is funny. That had not abolished the office as of January 2022, and provide that sheriffs may be recalled from office or removed by a writ of quo warranto initiated by the Attorney General. This amendment would preserve the right of citizens of each county that elected a county sheriff as of January 11, 2022, to continue electing the county sheriff. The amendment would also provide that a county sheriff only may be involuntarily removed from office pursuant to either a recall election or a writ of quo warranto initiated by the Attorney General. So this initiative passed by 61.66%. Interesting. Who supported it? Mainly the Republican politicians: Kenneth Collins, John Ressman, Eric Smith, Douglas County Sheriff Jay Armbrister, that's an interesting last name, and Kansas Attorney General Derek Schmidt. Unions that were supported it as well: Kansas Sheriff's Association, organizations, Johnson County Sheriff's Office. Opponents who opposed this bad boy: Sidney Carlin, Mike Dodson, and Dennis Heiberger. Interesting. Mike is a Republican, but he sided with the Democrats on that one. Organizations: American Civil Liberties Union of Kansas, and individuals: Kurt Muldrup, director of the Riley County Police Department. Okay, now we are moving on to the Blue Hills of Kentucky. In Kentucky, it is not a citizen BI state. Laws are passed the traditional way via the legislature, and amendments are referred to voters by what the legislator via a legislative referred constitutional amendment would like the voters to ratify. So the first one, Kentucky Constitutional Amendment 1, changes to legislative session end dates and special session measures. This failed by 53.55%. Let's go on. So it says again, this measure was defeated. The amendment was designed to remove specific legislative session end dates from the Constitution and provide instead that odd year sessions are limited to 30 legislative days and even year sessions are limited to 60 legislative days. The amendment would have allowed the state legislature to set the legislative end date by statute or joint resolution and to change the end date of the legislative session through a 3/5 vote in each chamber. It would also have allowed the House Speaker and the Senate President to jointly call a special legislative session for up to 12 days. In 2022, Kentucky was one of 14 states in which only the governor could call a special session. The measure also would have added that laws, except general appropriations, would have taken effect on July 1st in the year the act was passed, or 90 days after it was approved, whichever was later. So that's Kentucky. And quick note here from Roger as well. Although it passed in Idaho, it failed here. It also failed in Arkansas. In 2022, again, Kentucky is one of 14 states in which only the governor could call a special session. So hopefully you learned something new here tonight. Who opposed that? Governor Andy Beshear, organizations, Kentucky Conservation Committee, League of Women Voters of Kentucky. Another note here from Roger, I would assume that if the legislator is of your party, you might want them working more to pass what you like. But if they are not, I would imagine you want them working as less as possible to not do damage. Abolish all parties. And I think this is the last one here for Kentucky. This is also in reference to a woman's right to choose. Kentucky Constitutional Amendment number 2, no right to abortion in constitutional amendment. A yes vote supported amending the Kentucky Constitution to state that nothing in the state constitution creates a right to abortion or requires the government funding for abortion. This measure was defeated, just like it failed in Kansas back in the summer. Constitutional 2 amendment would have amended the Bill of Rights of the Kentucky Constitution to state that nothing in the state constitution protects or secures a right to abortion or requires the funding of abortion. So again, this measure failed by 52.35%. But similar to this measure with Kansas, you have to read it carefully, because just because it failed doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. Because it failed is actually a good thing. And you can tell that by the supporters. Who supported it? All of the Republican representatives. Robbie Mills, Joseph Fisher, Nancy Tate, Michael Adams, Allison Ball, Daniel Cameron, Mike Harmon, Ryan Corliss, former officials, Adia Wuchner, organizations, Catholic Conference of Kentucky, et cetera, et cetera. So this constitutional amendment, no right to abortion in constitutional amendment. I don't know why they say it that way. No right to abortion in constitutional amendment in Kentucky failed, but it's good that it failed. If it would have passed, then you would not have a right to an abortion in Kentucky. So hopefully, guys, you have learned something new tonight. I hope you're learning something to go along with these ballot initiatives that we're running through. There's so many of them. Louisiana will be next. That one is going to take a couple of days because they have over 11. I'm not kidding. I'm not exaggerating. They have over 11.